Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Today is the last Sunday in that church season we call Epiphany. This Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, we will pivot liturgically into Lent. We'll turn our faces away from the star in the east and toward the cross. Together, we will set out on a somewhat darker spiritual journey, one that goes through death before it gets to resurrection. But today, we get one more Sunday to just bask in the light. After all, Epiphany is all about light, about noticing those bright, shining places where God shows up. Epiphany starts, if you remember, with the wise men following a star to Jesus, with John telling us at the beginning of his gospel that the light shines in the darkness and the darkness does not overcome it. Over the last several weeks, we've heard the psalmist sing, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" We've heard Jesus proclaim to his disciples, "You are the light of the world. Shine brightly." This year, we started off the Epiphany season doing something new. We received Star Words, not Star Wars. Those who weren't there, I hope you got one this morning. Just as the star guided the wise men to the Christ child, we ask God to, through a word or a phrase, guide us into the new year, to shine a little bit of heaven's light on our path so we can make our way in the right direction. Some of you were very pleased with your Star Words, and some of you, not so much. At least one of you, Wolfgang, held up your Star Word and said, "Anyone want to trade?" Sometimes we don't always like seeing what the light reveals. I'll be honest, I was skeptical about my own word because the star I drew contained the word yes. And if there's one word in the English language that I use too much, it is yes. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I would like another cookie. Thank you. Yes, sure, of course, I'll serve on one more committee. And beyond that, quite frankly, there are parts of 2023 thus far to which I would not answer yes, but would like to say a great, big, resounding no. And here's this little star saying yes, yes, yes. Jesus' disciples have just heard a few things to which they would rather say no. In the passage before this morning's gospel reading, Jesus tells the disciples that he's going to Jerusalem to suffer and die, to be killed by the authorities, and on the third day he will rise again. And as if that wasn't enough, he has also told them that they too must take up their crosses, deny themselves, and follow him. If they want to save their lives, they must be willing to lose their lives. Peter does not like the picture that Jesus is painting, and so he says, "God forbid it. This must never happen to you." But Jesus turns on him and says, "Get behind me, Satan." Ouch, Jesus. Peter was just trying to help. 6 days later, Matthew says, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up the mountain. 6 days is a long time to sit with difficult uncomfortable news. When they set out with Jesus, these disciples are desperately seeking light. And light is what they get. Jesus is transfigured before their eyes. His face shines like the sun. His clothes are dazzling white. Moses and Elijah appear and begin talking to him. The disciples see a glimmer of God's glory. They know something good is happening. The people who walked 6 days in darkness have indeed finally found their great light. Living here in Taos, we know a thing or two about what happens when things are exposed to the light. Light has the power to melt, soften. Light opens things up, reveals what is there that we may never have seen otherwise. Extended exposure to the light of the sun weakens fabric so that it tears more easily. Add some water to that light, and the freeze-thaw cycle will crack open even the hardest of rocks. I think light does the same thing to people. It melts us. It makes us softer, more tender. Standing on the mountaintop, glowing with God's light, we let down our guard. We acknowledge our vulnerability. Linger in the light long enough, and surely our hearts will break right open. We will let God's light in. We will let our real selves shine, because in that light, we know we're warm and safe. And then comes the cloud. It's interesting, isn't it, what happens to the disciples when the light goes away? They have seen strange things, but they are not afraid. In fact, Peter suggests they set up camp and remain in the glow. But when the cloud overshadows them, everything takes on a different hue. The voice of God proclaims, "This is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." And the three disciples who, just moments before, were unafraid in the presence of a vision, now fall down in fear. Things look different, feel different when the light fades. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up, do not be afraid." My friend and former pastor when I was in college, Reverend Patrick Wilson, points to this moment as the miracle of the Transfiguration. Not the clouds, the lights, the apparitions, the heavenly voice, but the hand of God reaching out to touch us. Patrick writes, "Does anything banish our fears more perfectly than a simple human touch? This is the way that God comes into the world, not simply in the brilliant cloud of mystery, not only in a voice thundering from heaven, but also in a human hand laid upon a shoulder, and the words, 'Do not be afraid.' God's glory," says Patrick, "God's magnificence and power and majesty are surpassed by God's willingness to shed them all in order that we might finally recognize God's love and gentleness. We can take just as much of God's glory as a human hand can hold." That's what we bring down the mountain. as much of God's glory as a human hand can hold. We walk into Lent with a touch, a memory, a little glow of light. And we carry that light with us, trusting that it is enough. We take the light that we have received, and we share it with the world. Think back for a moment to your Epiphany star, to that word, that ray of light guiding you on your path. The light has been our guide. What if it now becomes our gift? Ours not to receive, but to give, to bear into the world around us. I want to encourage us this Lent to think of those words as the light we carry, the gifts we give, to ask, how can I share peace, tenderness, joy, mercy? How can I offer wisdom, hope, acceptance, assurance? How can I be wonder, service, wholeness, reverence? How can I live into God's yes? We who have seen God on the mountain, we have a gift to carry into the world. It may be a light, it may be a word, it may be a simple human touch. Whatever it is we have received in order to give, God has blessed us so that we may be a blessing. So friends, today, just bask in God's light. Let your hearts melt, your fears soften. Let your soul be cracked open. Receive God's love and light. And then walk down that mountain and light up the world. Thanks be to God.
Amen.